Hi, I'm Becky Walsh. So last year my dog died, and many of you may know her through having come to see me as a client, or she was sometimes in the background of my films, or you may have heard her snoring. She had an incredible snore, so you might have heard her snoring on some of my YouTube films. Her snore was so common to me I didn't even hear it when it was happening. Somebody pointed out to me this week, I was doing a webinar, and we were talking about, the webinar was all about understanding the darkness, like understanding difficult emotions that we feel and go through. And on the webinar, I was talking about things that are normal, you know, like wanting to kill someone is normal. Doing it is not normal. In fact, it's illegal. Planning how you would commit suicide is normal. Also, doing it, go get help before you decide that you're going to go through with it. But kind of thinking about how you would doing it, normal. Planning it, not normal. So one of the things I said was grieving over the loss of a pet more than a person. And I got this lovely email from somebody who's been in a situation like me, who has lost their pet. And what's uncomfortable about the grief of losing a pet is that people just don't get it. I mean, if you've lost a pet yourself, you get it. But it's almost like you're being insulting to people who have lost people. Like, you're not allowed, like literally not allowed to grieve more over a pet than a person. And if you do, you're seen as being some kind of, I don't know, oh, well, then you have no empathy for people who have lost a child, because you want to equate it as feeling the same. Now, having never lost a child, I don't know, but grief isn't something that kind of goes, oh, well, this much is appropriate in these circumstances, and this much is appropriate in these circumstances. And if you're part of a colossal kind of like, you know, train wreck where everybody dies or whatever, then you can have it's ridiculous. Grief just doesn't categorise itself in any kind of volume of appropriateness. And so it makes it so hard when you've lost an animal and people go, oh, it's like losing one of the family. No. In fact, depending on the family member, it's freaking worse. Sorry, family. But to be honest, my family get it. Like, they totally get it. And I was very lucky that my family got it. But in terms of the things that people say, it's like the loneliness of that kind of grief is really hard to deal with. You know, we had a builder that was working on the front of the property, and I said to my neighbour upstairs, I said, can you just say to him, if he says, oh, where's the dog when I leave the house, can you please pre-warn him? And she said, yeah, that's a good idea. So I walked out of the house and he turns to me and goes, oh, hiya, are you going to go and get a new dog now? And of course I burst into tears, but firstly I felt very violent towards him. Apparently, one of the stages of grief is anger. And there are no stages of grief. There is no, oh, you start here and you go here and you go here, oh, and then it's fine. I think that the best way of putting it is, it's like a box with a circle in it, and when the death first happens, that circle takes up all of the inside of that box. And then over time, the circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But if it ever hits the sides, it feels like it did the first time. Now, it's taken me over nearly 2 years. It's definitely over a year and a half. And I've started fostering dogs for a lovely charity called Paws and Claws Rescue, because I just didn't feel like I could own another dog and go through that kind of pain again. So I've had a number of different foster dogs, which has been great. And every time they've gone, it has felt like the loss of my first dog. Like, it felt like the loss of, like last year, which of course is a thing called complicated grief. So it's another way of being able to kind of like get out your emotions. So it's actually been extremely useful. And I have Buddy lying on my right hand side here, who I feel is probably going to be with me a long time, if not forever. And I have another rescue dog coming next week. So I kind of foster them. These are dogs that are not used to being in homes. So I foster them and get them used to being in homes. But nothing is ever going to make losing Don't get teary. Nothing is ever going to make losing Akasha feel better. Nothing is ever going to. You cannot move on from grief, and you cannot replace the loss. You cannot replace it. It doesn't replace. You can only journey with. So I journey with all of her memories. I journey with all of the fun times. I journey with her fun little face. I journey with all of that. Right, I'm going to cut this off because obviously I'm about to get upset, so I'm not going to, because I'm thinking, and this is the problem, whenever you think, you bring yourself back to those moments of trauma, and you bring yourself back to the loss when you think about it, and it does feel like it did the first time. But if you know anyone who has lost an animal, just be careful what you say. That whole, it's like losing a member of the family, it is losing a member of the family. And I certainly know, for one of the companies that I was working for at the time, the pressure to still turn up to work despite the fact that I had lost the dog, and despite the fact that I had said very clearly, I'm not dealing with this very well. And then to go on a training day, a freaking group bonding day, like not even training like anything important, a group bonding day, and be told, from a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? Oh my God. Unbelievably narrow in understanding of what significant loss feels like. Still went on the stupid training day. And by the end of it, when my emotions were plummeting, because there's an exhaustion that comes with grief that people don't kind of realise. You just feel completely exhausted and wiped out. And that was a tough day to get through. Really tough day to get through. And I will never do that shit to myself again. No is no. Don't ever do something because you're being forced into doing it by somebody else's what you think you should be feeling. You feel what you feel. And you're right to feel it.